Hi, this is Katie, and I am going to expand upon my thoughts for Chapter 2 for portraying a paradigm for change. And I'd like to focus on the three areas with systems thinking, narrative inquiry, and appreciative coaching. I feel like those three areas that they touched on really showed how impactful our literacy coaching can be on a campus and for our students. It was quite the paradigm shift as far as the thoughts that, as far as trying to work with other reading teachers. There was so much conversation that took place. And I think when we're having those conversations, that's when a lot can happen because we are able to find out where each are coming from and find out what's working and what isn't working. So the first thing I want us to look at is systems thinking. What I've noticed about this is that it stated collaboration and intentional conversation was really important. And I think that that is something that is so true. And I've noticed as we have met on my campus for our data meetings, we do have a very clear agenda and we ask intentional questions as we're working together to try to find the areas that are working for that classroom and for that teacher and for that grade level. And then we also try to find the areas where we need to fill in the gaps. One of the ways that we do that is that we do look for the three low student expectations, the three lowest when we're looking at data. And then our teachers are able to identify what the lowest SEs are. Then we collaborate and talk about how we can help the students reach those expectations. Sometimes we need to discuss things as a group, including the principal and our reading specialist, our RTI specialist. Other times, the teachers in the grade level have already come up with solutions and they know what they're going to do moving forward. But those conversations help them meet the goals and fill in the gaps. There was a quote that I really appreciated on page 25. It says, "We are not looking to find problems. We are not focusing on the negative. What we are doing is helping people to grow in their ability to self-direct change in their own lives." And I feel like the conversations that our teams have when we're looking at these RTI committees and we're looking at these RTI meetings, the teachers are finding ways that they can already solve these problems, solve these low SEs. They know what works for their students, and so they're able to come in and say, well, this is working with my students or with my class, and so they share and collaborate those ideas. The second thing that I'd like to discuss is narrative inquiry. This was really interesting because it did focus a lot about experiences. And part of the thing that I did like about this is that most teachers like to tell stories about what works for their class, and they sometimes like to tell what didn't work. I think my one concern with this is that sometimes we hear, or we might even be the ones that say, at my old school we did this, or at my previous campus this worked. And I think that sometimes just those words can be a great turnoff. I know that in coming to a campus or to a district where people have been at this campus for 20 plus years, where they've been here their whole career, maybe they even went to school here, I have to be very aware of my words when I speak to them, because in saying my old school, a lot of times they don't want to hear that. And so there's ways that we need to be able to get them to tell us what they need and get the other teachers to tell us about their experiences. And I loved that topic of narrative inquiry, just asking. The focus to balance quantitative and qualitative data seemed to really connect with my worldview. I'm taking the applied research class, and I tend to have the transformative worldview, where I'm looking to transform the lives of the students, transform or make change. And I think this whole chapter was a lot about that. And so I really connected with the balance of quantitative and qualitative. I've heard a teacher say, well, this kid doesn't talk and this kid won't do this. And in my mind, I think, well, I wouldn't be able to talk to you either because you scare me, and that's intimidating. And so when I think of that, that really connects with that qualitative experiences, but then we also need to take the data that goes along with it. And so I think there are some things that are beneficial. The literacy leaders versus the administration. I thought my personal goals have never been to be a principal. I thought that's what I might like to do. I knew I wanted to do something other than just classroom teaching eventually, but I love the classroom so much I couldn't imagine not being with students. So I really liked the way that this chapter laid out the difference between the goal and the purpose of literacy leaders, because I feel like it really connects with what I love about teaching. I'm very passionate about literacy and our students wanting to read and having that desire. And just in my own children who are in middle school, I'm so very thankful that they love to read. And I don't think it's that I did anything extraordinary. I think it's the exposure that they had, that it was something we've always done with them since they were little, is do the lap time. And so I find that to be effective. Having those conversations are essential. The one question, though, I had is, how do we know what questions to ask in that narrative inquiry? I think that that's something that would be really beneficial for us to discuss, and I'm curious to know what some of you think about what questions you might use or might ask, depending on the situations that you are going into with someone who might be needing some assistance or some coaching in literacy. When I read the story of Linda, one of the things I liked about her is that it stated she is self-directed and she initiates networking to learn beyond the environment which she physically works. And that was on page 32. I think that that is really a characteristic that it really is important. But I think the reason that she's self-directed in that area and is willing to initiate is because it must be something that she is passionate about. And then the question I made a note to myself, nature versus nurture, with this specific characteristic that she has. Not everyone is self-directed. Not everyone is going to take initiative to go and look beyond their capabilities and go look for help. And so I think that's something that we need to find ways to help people that aren't doing that, maybe find ways that they are able to do that and help us to coach them. On page 32, one of the things that was mentioned was a bridge. We are a bridge to transform the field. I loved this because it wasn't until about probably 10 years ago that the concept of a service leader came into, that I really experienced service leadership. And I feel like this literacy coaching really exemplifies the idea of that service leadership. We're not there as a gotcha. We're not there because we are above anyone or because we are more knowledgeable necessarily, but we are there because we are going to work together. We're going to work collaboratively, and we're going to bridge to transform the field. We want to bridge that idea that we're no longer have to be doing everything the same way. We're going to separate them and do them a little bit differently, and whatever's needed for our students. The next topic of appreciative coaching, there was a statement that was made on page 34, and it said, applied philosophy and process used as we mentor and coach each other in collaboration. And when you think about applying that philosophy and applying that process as we mentor and coach, when we're mentoring and when we're coaching, it's a positive experience. And so the idea that everyone, it goes on to say, everyone needs to learn the knowledge and skills to be appreciative coaches. I really like that, because when it states that everyone needs to be able to do this, even our students need to be able to do this. And so there are ways that we can teach our students how to be appreciative coaches. What a great characteristic for them to have at such a young age. And that whole mind shift of everyone is a stakeholder in this process. Our students, our parents, and that goes back to the discussion that was talked about in chapter 1. One of the other things that I was curious about is, how can we support the students? How can we support the teachers in that collaboration, in that change, in that intentional questioning. And so I actually had a discussion with my principal this morning because in reading this chapter, I feel like there are a lot of things that she's doing as a leader on our campus to really open the floor for collaboration and conversation. I think one of the areas, though, that we can focus on and really work on is the intentional questioning and knowing what questions to ask through that narrative experience. My role here on my campus right now, I am the dyslexic teacher in the district, so I hop around, but I'm also on paper the reading specialist at the elementary school. And so I spend a lot of time with our elementary and intermediate ELAR teachers. And so I want to find ways where I can actually have opportunities to be coaching them or mentoring them alongside them. And those things take time. And so I'm curious if any of you have experienced either working as the literacy coach or working with literacy coaches, what that looks like for you and what kind of experience you've had, if it's been positive, what are the positives that have come out of it. I look forward to hearing your responses and to watching your other videos. Thank you.